Just going back to last week's match, briefly, you spoke afterwards about it was a great learning experience for that young team. Just want to get a little bit of insight looking ahead to this week's match. With the view of getting win on tour, would you be inclined to mix in a little bit more experience in your lineup for this week, just to, I suppose, ensure that those younger players, get the experience of winning abroad as well?
Yeah, like it's a battle. Like it's just trying to keep the group fresh as well that we have. So, we'll make some changes this week, and as much as just to freshen guys up, I think is important. Have some experience starting and then some coming off the bench as well. So it's trying to get that balance that we always talk about. It was plenty of good stuff in the game in terms of the intent and the fight and the spirit and all the rest. But accuracy and some of our work around kick chase in particular, which gets us into trouble. So there were certain aspects of the game we knew we'd have to dig in at different times. And that's probably the way the game played out, the way we thought it would. So, for us, the Stormers are a very different type of team to the way the Sharks play in terms of mindset, and even the conditions are slightly different. In Durban, it's very humid. Obviously, there was that sort of rain shower at the end of the first half into the second half as well, which makes conditions quite challenging. Here, it's a little bit different. Temperature's not quite as warm, and there's certainly not that sense of humidity either. So, another great test for us away with generally young groups. So we're looking forward to seeing how they go now. But it'll be a tough challenge.
You spoke after the game as well about the Stormers having only one competition to focus on. So when you go back now, you'll have 2 games against Leicester. You'll also have the URC to focus on. So I think you said a war on 2 fronts. With bearing that in mind, how important is it to take points off your rivals? They're only 9 points behind you in the URC, so how important is it to get a win against the Stormers now while you have the chance to take points off them?
Well, the big thing for us is just trying to get enough points to finish top, because once you get a top seeding, then you get the home comforts. So that's the biggest thing for us. So whatever that involves, and making sure depending on how the game plays out, it'd be great to win the game. But for us, it's working hard this week on the performance part. So there was a lot of good work in the lead into the Sharks game. It's the same for us this week. So get our performance or get our preparation right off the field, which will help massively in terms of delivering a quality performance on the weekend. So the guys need to work hard this week, training. That's the important piece for us at the moment, and we'll see what that delivers in terms of outcomes in the game and all the rest. But at the moment, it's just we're familiarising ourselves again. Stormers are a team that we've watched, but a team we haven't played against. So it's a unique challenge for us. The guys, they've travelled well. We left Durban yesterday, got down here to Cape Town, and we're excited to get going now again.
Because finally, one for me, just a word on Ronan Kelleher. I know that he's flown back to Ireland. How serious is his shoulder problem?
I don't think so. No, he's pretty touch and go for the game. So we've flew Lee out during the week as precaution as much as anything else. We thought, but we didn't get enough improvements in him over the course of a few days. So amazing experience for John McKee to start. Against all international front row, World Cup winner there at hooker as well, and for Lee to come off the bench. So a brilliant experience for the 2 guys. So really pleased for the 2 to make their Leinster debuts. So Brian Deaney was another one who made his debut for Leinster. So 3 guys in the front 5, and against a very experienced forward pack in the Sharks. So definitely a baptism of fire for them. But hopefully the experience will stand them in the long run.
Absolutely. Thanks, Leo.
Thanks.
Leo, it's Don here. Would it be fair to say that the South African URC games are a tougher block now, and not just for Leinster but for other championship teams, and that it'll need further planning and development going forward for Leinster?
Definitely. There's a fair bit of planning has gone into this trip even. And trying to manage a few guys that haven't made the trip. So, there's decisions and choices within that. So, there's, if you think the way the season, you come off the Six Nations, we had a big game against Connacht in the URC. You go into the Munster game down in Thomond, then it's Connacht in URC last 16, trip to South Africa. Again, what we talk about, the playoff games, you don't get past Connacht, you don't have a quarter final to worry about. So, but thankfully we got through Connacht. It was a quarter final. Week after that as a semi final. Then we play Munster in the Aviva. And if you're still standing in Europe, you have a final in Marseille before you go quarter final, semi final at URC as well. So, it's a very unusual challenge. But it's for us to try and embrace now. So, some guys have had an amazing experience just by being here in South Africa. 3 more Leinster senior players now that we had this time last week. So again, that's another positive. Didn't win the game, but there was plenty of learning within the game. So hopefully a lot of the guys that were involved in the game will be better for the experience, and that'll be a positive for the future of Leinster. And in the European Challenge, it's just getting excited by that again. Because this is the first time we've had this format of Europe, and if you've got ambitions trying to win the tournament, you've obviously got to get through. As we talked about that last 16 format, home and away, or away and home in our case, and then you've three games in the space of 4 weeks. So it's an amazing challenge, but we'll need a big group of players. So to have this group of players in terms of the experience gathered, I guess, when called upon, some of these guys will be able to step in hopefully and do a good job for the group. And some guys obviously been over here have impressed and will feature in some of those knockout games as well, hopefully.
Okay, good luck in Cape Town.
Thanks, Don.
Hi, Leo. Jerry Cardy. Just wondering, talking about the conditions there in Durban and the humidity and that, and how much was that a factor in Leinster's performance? Do you think it impacted, certainly with the rain shower and that?
Yeah, it was hard to get into any bit of decent sort of multi-phase attack because conditions were difficult, so probably favoured the defence. You saw quite a bit of kicking, so the kicking duels in the game. I think Sharks, very experienced in playing that type of game. Some of the stats about them, generally their games, it's lower ball in play. There's less passing involved in those games because their conditions are difficult. I think Sharks are second lowest, or maybe possibly even lowest, I think, passing team in the tournament. So it gives a bit of an indication of the type of games that they play there. Granted, they had a period of pretty horrific sort of tropical rain there as well to deal with. So yeah, the game quite often gets shaped by the environment and the conditions, and yeah, hence a lot of kicking in the game. So for us, there was some good parts in terms of lessons learned in some of those kicking exchanges as well. And you knock off for a second against some of the speed and threat that the Sharks have, and it'll be very similar against the Stormers this week. So they can really make you pay. So there was a couple of times obviously they made us pay. Try just before half time, key moment, for us, we don't get our kick chase right and they're making a break through the middle of us and go on to score. So it's making sure that we get those bits right this weekend.
Okay, and finally for me, just the table is sort of what's the word, condensing behind you, and including in third place Munster, Sharks, Ulster, all on 51 points, Glasgow 50. Have you any say on what you think the way the table is developing?
All I'm caring about trying to get 2 more points, which makes we can't be caught. So 2 more points from 2 more games. So the sooner we get them, the better. Because thankfully a lot of the games, the way it unfolded last weekend, with teams beating each other, some of the results were probably quite favourable in terms of we kept a bit of a gap there. Particularly with obviously Glasgow losing and Ulster losing those 2 games in particular, so they never gained any ground on us really. So anyway, we know where we sit, what we need to get in the last couple of games. So we're playing Stormers first against second, so it'll be a tough challenge. I'm sure they'll be highly motivated for the game, because they know they have to travel to Europe then for their last game. So I'm sure they'll be keen to get as many points as they can out of this weekend.
Look on Saturday, Leo.
Thanks, Jerry. Yeah.
Leo, something that struck me, because you guys didn't play or aren't playing in Joburg or Pretoria, it probably doesn't affect you that much this year. But clearly the Northern Hemisphere teams are struggling a great deal on the high felt. The conditions are really challenging. Do you think it's going to be something that the Northern Hemisphere sides will have to look at from a conditioning perspective, or is it a game management perspective where they perhaps have to kind of manage the game in a different way, just to keep going for 80?
Yeah, well, the Connacht had a good win against the Lions, which is good to see. So it can be done. I know Munster, I watched that game closely to the time, and they were in control of that game, but managed to lose it towards the end. Some uncharacteristic errors probably in the game. Credit to the Lions, they dug in it right to the very end. The Bulls, yeah, we would watch them over many, many years in Super Rugby, and know how hard a place that is to play. Particularly with the travel. Remember some of those big games they would have had against some of the New Zealand teams in particular that sort of stick in my mind in the playoff time of the year, because that's not the type of place. And that, again, going back to the seedings for the knockouts, it shows you how important it is really trying to get all those home comforts, because the challenge of travel and on time away, and you don't have the same control over training venues and all the rest. So there's lots of moving parts in terms of trying to manage a trip for both sides, whether that's the South African team going heading north or European team heading south. So the moral of the story is try and get as many points as you can on the board, and keep the home draws if you want to be successful in the playoffs. We know from even our time against the Cheetahs, playing at altitude ourselves, that's our only game at altitude that we've had as a team. We had our challenges there as well. And it's just trying to get the right, from experience, I think you get over time. We went into it, we actually, the last time, we actually came here before we came to Cape Town before we went up to altitude, and possibly that was a mistake at the time with some of the feedback that we got. So it's how you manage that trip. Definitely there's challenges there. Any advice welcome.
And just your general impressions on the Stormers?
Very good attacking team, aren't they? You see at the weekend, Roos at number 8 is very, very dynamic ball carrier, gets through a lot of work. Strong scrum again, obviously with Kitchoff and Malherbe. I know they lost their hooker at the weekend, so what exactly that does for them. But yeah, two very experienced front rowers there. And it's probably their mindset to keep the ball alive. You saw at the weekend their game against Glasgow. Attackers, looking for space, very, very good footwork, trying to get through the line and ability to offload out the back of tackles. So you can see that in their game against Glasgow. So just making sure that we're aware of all those threats. In many ways, it's say like a Toulouse for us in Europe, we would see like that. You can't knock off for a second, because it's the attacking mentality they have, but it's also then the speed that they have as well. So once they're behind you, Stormers are very, very dangerous with a lot of pace. We won't be able to switch off for a second against them.